After my surgery, my fiancée chose a party with her male best friend. So I canceled the wedding, returned the ring, and kicked her out. 3 months later, she showed up sobbing. All right, guys, strap in for this disaster. I was injured in a work accident and had surgery. My fiancée went out to party with her best friend while I was recovering. You want to ruin my night because you're insecure, she said. So I let her have the fun while I dismantled everything between us. Here's what went down. I'm 32 male, a lineman for the power company, been doing high voltage work for 8 years. Good money, decent benefits, but the job can bite you in the ass when you least expect it. 3 months ago, I found that out the hard way when a transformer housing gave way and I took a 15-foot fall onto concrete, shattered my left shoulder, fractured 3 ribs, and got a concussion that had me seeing double for 2 weeks. The fall happened during what should have been a routine maintenance call, simple swap out of a blown fuse. The weather was perfect, equipment checked out fine, but the mounting bracket was corroded worse than it looked. As soon as I put weight on it, the whole thing crumbled like a cookie. 15 feet doesn't sound like much until you're falling backwards with 40 pounds of gear strapped to your body. The safety harness caught me, but the sudden stop wrenched my shoulder so hard I heard it pop before I felt the pain. Landed hard on the concrete pad around the transformer, and everything went black for about 10 minutes. My crew chief Rick found me face down and barely conscious, mumbling about seeing two of everything. The guys later told me I kept asking if the fuse was installed, like my brain was stuck on autopilot even while I was basically concussed to hell. Rick said I looked like I'd been hit by a truck, blood coming from my ears, and my left arm hanging at this weird angle that made everyone's stomach turn. The workers' comp paperwork was a nightmare. 3 different doctors, 2 insurance adjusters, and some corporate safety inspector who kept asking if I'd followed proper protocols. Rick had my back through the whole process, making sure I didn't get railroaded by some desk jockey trying to blame worker error. Company's been cutting corners on equipment inspections, he told me privately. This accident's on them, not you. Paramedics said I was lucky the harness worked, or I'd be looking at broken bones everywhere. The ER doc was this older guy who'd seen plenty of construction accidents, and he didn't sugarcoat anything. Your shoulder's basically hamburger, he said, looking at the x-rays. We're talking about reconstructive surgery, months of physical therapy, and you might never get full range of motion back. The surgery took 4 hours. They had to rebuild the socket with pins and screws, and when I woke up, my whole upper body felt like it had been taken apart and reassembled by someone who'd lost the instruction manual. I'd been with my now ex-fiancée Roxy, 29 female, for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. Before my accident, things seemed good enough. I made good money as a journeyman lineman. She worked part-time doing social media for some yoga studio, making maybe $25,000 if she was lucky. When we moved in together 2 years ago, it made sense for me to handle the major bills since my credit didn't suck and I actually had steady income. I was pulling down about $85,000 a year with overtime while she was making rent money at best. Everything was in my name. The lease on our decent 2-bedroom apartment, utilities, her car payment on the Jeep Cherokee I co-signed for, cell phones, insurance, you name it. She contributed to groceries and handled her own shopping, which honestly wasn't much since I was basically funding her lifestyle. The Jeep alone was costing me $400 a month, but she needed reliable transportation for her part-time gig. Thought I was being a good provider, setting us up for marriage like my old man taught me. But there was always this one massive red flag that I kept making excuses for. Her male best friend Dorian. This guy was 30, worked some dead-end job at a bike shop, and acted like he was in a relationship with my girlfriend. They'd been best friends since college, and according to Roxy, their bond was sacred and unbreakable. He had full access to the apartment like he lived there. I'd come home from a 12-hour shift working storm damage and find him on my couch, drinking my drinks, playing my PlayStation. When I brought up boundaries, Roxy acted like I was being controlling. The bike shop where Dorian worked was one of those trendy places that charged $200 for basic tune-ups and acted like they were saving the environment by fixing rich people's weekend hobby bikes. He would constantly brag about being a cycling expert and alternative transportation advocate, but the dude drove a beat-up Honda Civic and only rode bikes when he was getting paid for it. My buddy Nate saw right through this setup from day one. He'd been warning me about Dorian since they first met. Dude's marking his territory, he told me after watching Dorian rearrange my living room furniture. Next thing you know, he'll be pissing on your couch to claim it. The dude was always there. Date nights? He would show up or call with some emergency. Trying to have a quiet weekend? He texting every hour or just walking in unannounced. I started feeling like a guest in my own place, but Every time I said something, Roxy hit me with the "you're being insecure" speech. What really got under my skin was how he'd make himself at home with my stuff. I'd buy a case of good drinks, come home the next day, and half of it would be gone because Dorian had stopped by to hang out with Roxy. My PlayStation controller started showing wear from his gaming sessions. Even my Netflix recommendations got screwed up because he was constantly watching his weird indie documentaries and foreign films on my account. Here's what really screwed with my head. Whenever we had any disagreement, she'd immediately call him for backup. Mid-conversation, she'd literally say, "Hold on, I need to ask Dorian what he thinks." Not her sister, not her mom, Dorian. Always Dorian. When we were picking out engagement rings, he came along to help Roxy choose something she'd love. When we looked at wedding venues, guess who tagged along with opinions about what would make the day perfect for Roxy? The guy was basically planning my wedding with my fiancée, while I paid for everything. My buddies at work noticed it too. They'd ask why I let some other dude have so much access to my woman, but I kept telling myself I was being the mature, secure boyfriend. Rick would just shake his head and say, "Brother, you're being way too cool about this situation." Nate was more direct about it. "You're paying this chick's bills so she can play house with another dude," he said during one of our poker nights. "That's not being secure. That's being a sponsor." Yeah, I was just being a heroic idiot. The warning signs were all there. But I loved her and thought marriage would naturally shift her priorities. That was my first mistake. After my accident, I was about to learn just how wrong I was. 6 weeks post-surgery, and I was still pretty messed up. Couldn't lift anything over 10 pounds, needed help getting dressed, and the pain meds made everything foggy. The doctor said full recovery would take 3 to 4 months minimum, possibly longer, if I didn't follow orders and rest. The power company had me on workers' comp, so money wasn't an immediate issue, but being stuck at home unable to work was driving me crazy. I'm not the type to sit around watching daytime TV and feeling sorry for myself. The workers' comp covered about 2/3 of my regular pay, which was still enough to handle all our bills, but it felt weird not having that steady paycheck routine. The physical therapy was brutal. 3 times a week, some sadistic therapist named Derek would put me through exercises that felt like medieval torture. Simple stuff like lifting my arm above my head became these massive challenges that left me exhausted and frustrated. Derek kept saying, "Pain is just weakness leaving the body," but mostly it just felt like pain being a dick about staying put. "We're rebuilding you from scratch," he'd say, while manipulating my arm in ways that made me see colors. The exercises had names like wall crawls and pendulum swings that sounded harmless, but felt like someone was torturing me with medieval tools. My crew at work was good, though. They'd rotate stopping by with food, drinks, and updates on who was screwing up what job sites. Rick, my crew chief, brought a case and told me straight up, "Take your time, man. We've all seen guys rush back too early and end up twice as messed up. The job will be here when you're ready." But here's where Roxy's true character started showing. Before my accident, she was at least somewhat attentive, made dinner sometimes, watched movies with me, acted like she wanted to be there. But during my recovery, it was like I became this inconvenient burden she had to deal with. She'd complain about having to pick up prescriptions, sigh dramatically when I asked for help with basic stuff like changing bandages, and spent most of her time texting Dorian. Meanwhile, Dorian was over constantly, supposedly helping, but really just hanging out while I sat there like a broken spectator in my own life. The prescription runs became this huge drama every time. She'd act like driving to CVS was some massive inconvenience, even though she barely worked and had nothing else going on. "I have to go all the way across town," she'd complain about a pharmacy that was literally 10 minutes away. The breaking point came when I overheard her on the phone with her friend one afternoon. I was napping in the bedroom and woke up to her voice in the living room. "I know, it's so hard. He's so needy right now, and I can barely do anything fun. I feel like I'm stuck here playing nurse." Playing nurse. To her injured fiancé who got hurt working to support both of us. She was treating my recovery like babysitting a difficult child, instead of caring for the man she was supposed to marry. That's when my buddy Nate started coming around more. "Dude," he said one afternoon while Roxy was out running errands, "your girlfriend's treating you like a freaking houseplant. At least plants get watered regularly." Nate's the kind of friend who'll tell you your haircut looks stupid and help you move a couch on the same day. He'd been watching the Dorian situation from the beginning, making comments I'd ignored because I thought I was being mature. Now, with me laid up and Roxy showing her true colors, Nate wasn't holding back anymore. The real game changer came 3 weeks into my recovery when my big sister Haley showed up unannounced. She lives in Denver, works in tech sales, and apparently Nate had called her, when he realized how bad things were getting. "Holy shit, you look terrible," was the first thing she said, walking into our apartment like she owned the place. Dorian was there naturally, playing my PlayStation while I struggled to open a water bottle one-handed. Haley took one look at the situation, and her expression went dark. Haley's got this presence that makes grown men in boardrooms second-guess themselves, and seeing her unleash that energy on Dorian was like watching a shark notice blood in the water. "Let me get this straight," she said, dropping her suitcase and staring Dorian down. "My brother is 6 weeks out from surgery, can barely use his left arm, and you're here playing video games?" Dorian mumbled something about helping out, but Haley wasn't having it. Helping out? By occupying his gaming system and drinking his stuff? That's not helping. That's freeloading with extra steps. When Roxy walked in an hour later, Haley was in the kitchen making actual food, while I sat at the table actually being taken care of properly for the first time in weeks. "Oh," Roxy said, clearly not expecting to see Haley. "I didn't know you were coming." "Yeah, funny how that works," Haley replied, without looking up from the stove. "When your fiancé gets seriously injured, and you're too busy playing house with Bike Shop Boy to mention it to his family." Haley stayed for a week. She cooked, helped with my physical therapy exercises, told Dorian to get lost every time he showed up, and generally reminded me what it felt like to have someone actually give a damn about my well-being. What happened next would be the final test, and having Haley there to witness it was perfect. Friday started normal enough. Roxy was actually being somewhat helpful, made coffee, helped me shower without too much attitude, even seemed like she was in a decent mood. I thought maybe Haley's presence had reminded her how to act like a decent human being. Around 2 p.m., I was feeling more sore than usual, and asked if Roxy could grab my pain meds from the bedroom. That's when the mask started slipping. "Can't you get them yourself?" she said, not even looking up from her phone. "I'm trying to get ready." Haley, who was reading on the couch, looked up slowly. "Get ready for what?" "It's 2 p.m. A concert. I'm going with Dorian." "Interesting." Around 4 p.m., Dorian showed up. I'm sitting on the couch in sweatpants with my arm in a sling, watching another man get ready for a night out with my fiancé in my own bathroom. At 5 p.m., they're both dressed and ready to leave, looking like they're going on a date. That's when Roxy dropped the real bomb. "Actually," she said, suddenly not making eye contact with me, "we were thinking of getting a hotel downtown after the show. It'll be really late and it's easier than trying to get back here." The silence in the room was deafening. Haley slowly turned to look at me, then at Roxy, then back at me. "She just told you she's spending the night in a hotel with another man while you're 6 weeks out from surgery and can barely lift your arm," Haley said, her voice deadly calm. "Am I understanding this correctly?" "Haley, stay out of this," Roxy said. "Stay out of this? Your fiancé's sister should stay out of you abandoning him for a sleepover with your side piece? That's rich." I looked at Roxy, waiting for her to realize what she'd just said, to show some concern for the man she was supposed to marry. "Look, I know you're still recovering, but I can't let Dorian down. He's been planning this for months and already booked the room. It's just one night." "It's okay. Have fun," I said coldly. "Good," Roxy said, grabbing her overnight bag. "I'm glad you're not going to be dramatic about this." They left together, laughing about something as the door closed behind them. Haley stared at the closed door for a long moment, then turned to me. "That," she said, "was the most disrespectful thing I've ever witnessed. Please tell me you're not actually going to sit and—" "Haley, don't worry. I'm handling this." I was staring at the engagement ring she'd left behind because it didn't match her outfit. Then I smiled. Everything was about to change, and for the first time in months, I was ready for it. Nate showed up 30 minutes later, took one look at Haley's expression, and immediately knew shit was about to get real. "Your sister looks like she's about to commit murder," he said to me. "I'm assuming Princess finally showed her true colors? She's spending the night in a hotel with Dorian while Milo can barely lift his arm," Haley said flatly. "So yeah, I want to murder someone." Nate grinned like Christmas morning. "Finally. I've been waiting months for this conversation. Haley, I like you. The feeling's mutual. Now how fast can we destroy this cheating bitch?" I've never loved my sister more than in that moment. We started with documentation. Nate took photos of everything in the apartment while Haley made lists and pulled receipts. I keep records of everything, so we had purchase dates and amounts for basically every major item in the place. "Holy shit," Nate said, flipping through receipts. "You bought literally everything in this place. What did Princess contribute?" "Her sparkling personality. Mostly complaints and STD risk," Haley added, which made Nate snort. Haley was ruthless in a way that impressed even Nate. She'd worked in corporate sales for years and knew how to systematically dismantle someone's life with paperwork and phone calls. Watching her work was like seeing a master craftsman use the perfect tool for every job. I started with the passwords: Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, Amazon Prime, all of it. I had Haley change everything: streaming services, social media accounts, online banking, even the damn Wi-Fi password. While she handled the digital scorched earth campaign, Nate and I focused on the physical stuff. The apartment lease was the big move. Since it was solely in my name, I had options. Nate pulled out his phone and called his cousin Danny, who worked in property management. Yeah, I need you to walk me through tenant eviction procedures. Hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to remove an unauthorized occupant, the conversation was educational. Turned out that since Roxy wasn't on the lease and hadn't established legal tenancy, no official mail, no utility bills in her name, she was basically a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. This eviction notice is a work of art, Haley said, reading over the legal document we'd drafted. Professional, thorough, and absolutely devastating. She's going to lose her mind. The real masterpiece was canceling the wedding. Haley took point on this, using her corporate experience to negotiate with vendors. I explained the situation professionally, she reported after an hour of phone calls. Most of them were surprisingly sympathetic. Apparently, brides abandoning injured grooms isn't common enough to be jaded about. We managed to recover almost $18,000 in deposits and payments. Haley documented everything for the demand letter she was already planning. The venue was surprisingly cool about it. The manager actually said, "Son, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can spot a disaster wedding from a mile away. You dodging this bullet is probably the best thing that could happen to you." Nate helped me pack everything that was mine, while Haley coordinated like a general planning a military campaign. "Oh, look, she left her engagement ring," Nate said, finding it on the dresser. "Guess it didn't match her hotel outfit." "Pack it," I said. "That's going back, along with a bill for everything else." Nate loaded all of Roxy's stuff while Haley called a locksmith. "This is the most fun I've had since college," Haley said as we tested the new locks. But she had one more surprise that made my jaw drop. "I took the liberty of documenting Dorian's bike shop employment through public records," she said, showing us her laptop screen. "Turns out he makes about $28,000 a year and has 2 kids with 2 different women he doesn't pay child support for." "How the hell did you find that out?" Nate asked. "LinkedIn, Facebook, a little creative Googling, and courthouse records. Your girlfriend's soulmate is a deadbeat dad who can't hold down a real job. This should be interesting when reality hits." The child support information was gold. 2 different cases in family court, both showing Dorian consistently behind on payments. One of the baby mamas had even posted public complaints about him on social media. We headed to my parents' place, where Haley had already arranged for me to stay while things got sorted out. "You know what the best part is?" Haley said as we unloaded my stuff. "She thinks she won. She got her night with Dorian, proved she could do whatever she wanted, and now she gets to learn what life looks like without someone else paying for it." Nate raised his drink. "To Haley, the sister I never had but always wanted." "To Milo, for finally growing a backbone," Haley replied. The real fireworks were about to start, and we had front row seats. Saturday was blissfully quiet. Haley delayed her flight so she could watch the fireworks, and we spent the day at my parents' house eating Mom's cooking and preparing for what we all knew was coming. My parents were being surprisingly cool about the whole situation. Dad just said, "About time," and Mom started making up the guest room like I was coming home from college. They'd never loved Roxy anyway, though they'd been polite about it. The explosion started Sunday afternoon, and it was everything we'd hoped for and more. First message, sent around 1 p.m. "Milo, I'm back at the apartment and I can't get in. Did you change the locks? And my phone isn't working. What's going on? Call me." "Oh, this is just the appetizer," Haley said, cracking open a drink at 1:30 p.m. "Wait until she realizes the scope of this." An hour later, the tone shifted. "This isn't funny. I had to borrow Dorian's phone to message you. My credit card was declined at lunch, and it was embarrassing. There's some official-looking paper on the counter that I don't understand. You need to call me right now." "Credit card declined," Nate read over my shoulder. "That means she tried to use the card that's attached to your account." Beautiful. The image of Roxy's card getting declined at some restaurant in front of Dorian was satisfying in ways I didn't know were possible. But by evening, full panic had set in. "Milo, please. I get that you're upset about the whole thing. Maybe I should have come home, but this is insane. You can't just lock me out of our apartment and cancel everything. I have nowhere to go and all my stuff is locked inside. Dorian said this is illegal, and you can't just kick me out. We need to talk. Please." Haley was taking notes in a notebook like she was grading a performance. Dorian said it's illegal? That's rich coming from a guy who's behind on child support. What's his legal expertise watching Judge Judy? Nate was getting regular updates from his network of friends who knew people who knew people. Apparently, Roxy and Dorian's triumphant return to our apartment had been a complete disaster. They'd shown up Sunday afternoon expecting to continue their romantic weekend, only to find themselves locked out of an empty apartment with an eviction notice taped to the door. Roxy's phone was dead, her credit card didn't work, and she suddenly realized the extent of her financial dependence on me. According to my sources, Nate reported, they had a massive fight right there in the hallway. She blamed Dorian for encouraging her to stay at the hotel. He blamed her for ruining a good thing by making you suspicious. And then? Haley asked, fully invested in the drama. Then Dorian left her there. Just packed up his stuff and drove home, telling her she needed to figure her shit out because he wasn't getting involved in her housing problems. Haley's laugh was evil. That's poetry. The same guy who'd been all over social media posting about their true friendship couldn't handle one afternoon of actual problems. Monday brought a new player into the drama. Rebecca, Roxy's toxic friend. She sent me a series of nasty texts calling me controlling, manipulative, and psychologically abusive. Haley read them and immediately pulled out her phone. Oh, hell no. Nobody talks to my brother like that. Wait, what are you doing? I'm teaching this bitch some manners. Haley's response to Rebecca was surgical. Hi, Rebecca. This is Milo's sister. I was there when your friend abandoned her injured fiancé for a hotel room with another man. Since you seem confused about who the victim is here, let me clarify. It's not the cheater. Maybe focus on helping your friend find a job instead of texting her ex. XOXO. Rebecca went silent after that, but the drama was just getting started. Thursday evening, I was at my parents' house helping Dad fix their garbage disposal when we heard screaming from the front yard. Through the window, we could see Roxy marching up the driveway like she was leading a one-woman army. Milo! She screamed, pounding on the front door. I know you're in there. You can't just destroy my life and hide. Haley opened the door. Oh, look who decided to show up. You bitch! Roxy snapped. It's all because of you. Watch your tongue before I pull it out of your head. Where's Milo? Tell him to get out right now. Nah, he's good. She started screaming, calling me every name in the book, and Dad had to threaten to call the police before she finally left. The next morning brought messages from Dorian that were pure comedy gold, trying to defend Roxy and calling me insecure. I simply replied, she's yours now. Congrats. He never responded, but Roxy's parents were a different story. Her dad Tom actually called to apologize for his daughter's behavior, while her mom Linda tried to make excuses. Tom shut her down hard. Linda, our daughter abandoned her injured fiancé for another man. End of discussion. 2 weeks later, Roxy was apparently doubling down on her choices in the most public way possible. She and Dorian were posting constantly on social media about their true love, trying to rebrand her cheating as some great romance. The posts were getting more desperate by the day. Finally found my soulmate captions with forced smiles. True love conquers all bullshit over photos that looked increasingly staged. Even their friends were starting to comment with confused reactions and side-eye emojis. The social media campaign backfired spectacularly. Family and friends could see right through the performance, especially when her own dad commented, interesting timing for true love, right after abandoning your injured fiancé. Meanwhile, Nate had his own revenge brewing, and it was diabolical. Yo, Milo, remember how Dorian used to use your PlayStation all the time? He asked with a grin that made me nervous. Yeah, why? Well, I may have done something while we were packing up your stuff. He pulled out his phone, showing me screenshots. I logged into your PSN account on his profile and bought about $800 worth of games and DLC. Nate, what the hell? Relax. I used her credit card information that was saved on your account. He'd used her saved credit card information to buy about $800 worth of games and subscriptions for Dorian's gaming accounts, charges that would keep hitting her for months until she figured out how to stop them. You're evil, I said, but I was laughing. I prefer creative. Meanwhile, my life was actually getting back on track. The shoulder was healing faster than the doctors predicted. Derek, my physical therapist, was impressed with my progress and started pushing me harder. Most guys your age would still be whining about lifting a coffee cup, he said during one session. You're ready to get back to real work. By week 10, I was cleared for light duty. Rick called me personally with the news that a desk job had opened up in dispatch. Same pay, easier hours, and I could transition back to field work once I was fully cleared. The dispatch work was actually perfect for where I was mentally. I got to coordinate crews, handle emergency calls, and basically be the guy who kept everyone else from screwing up their jobs. It felt good being useful again, even if I wasn't climbing towers. House hunting became my new obsession. After years of renting and basically subsidizing someone else's lifestyle, the idea of building actual equity was intoxicating. My credit was solid, I had decent savings, and the real estate market was finally showing some properties in my range. It was a 1,200 square foot ranch in a decent neighborhood, built in the 80s but well maintained. 2 bedrooms, garage, small yard, and most importantly, mine. Every payment went towards something I actually owned instead of funding someone else's lifestyle. Nate helped me move in and immediately claimed the second bedroom as his crash pad for when his girlfriend kicked him out. "This place has good energy," he said, testing out my new recliner. "No toxic vibes, no bike shop losers, just a man in his domain." The house came with a workshop in the garage. I started rebuilding small engines in my spare time. Lawnmowers, generators, anything mechanical that needed fixing. It was therapeutic as hell. Plus, I was making decent side money flipping refurbished equipment on Craigslist. The dating situation sorted itself out naturally, too. I wasn't actively looking, but when you're suddenly not attached to drama and actually have your life together, people notice. There was Lisa, who lived 3 streets over. We met at the hardware store when she was trying to figure out why her generator wouldn't start. I fixed it in her driveway in about 10 minutes, and she insisted on buying me dinner as payment. We dated casually for about a month. Nothing serious, just someone cool to hang out with, who had her own place, own job, and zero interest in creating drama. When it naturally ran its course, we stayed friends. Work was going so well that Rick started hinting about a promotion to crew supervisor once I was cleared for full duty. My parents were thrilled with how everything was turning out. Mom kept bringing casseroles over to help me settle in, but really she just wanted to see me happy again. Dad would stop by to check on my workshop projects and generally act proud that his son had figured out how to adult properly. Without constant relationship drama and someone else's problems to worry about, I was sleeping through the night for the first time in years. The only reminders of the Roxy situation were the occasional updates from mutual friends. Apparently, she and Dorian were having money problems, fighting constantly, and their social media presence had gone from desperate to non-existent. "She asked Rebecca about you last week," Haley reported during one of our Sunday phone calls. "Wanted to know if you were dating anyone." What did Rebecca tell her? That it was none of her business and maybe she should focus on her own train wreck instead of stalking her ex. By month 3, life had settled into this comfortable routine that I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Work, house projects, weekend barbecues with actual friends, and zero tolerance for bullshit from anyone. That's when the universe decided to remind me that some stories don't end cleanly. I was at my new place when she showed up unannounced on a Tuesday evening. Nate was there helping me install a new garage door opener, and we both heard the tentative knock that sounded nothing like the confident woman I used to know. She looked rough, really rough. Hair unwashed, clothes that had seen better days, and this defeated posture that would have made me feel sorry for her if I didn't know better. "Milo," she said when I opened the door, "I need to talk to you, please." Nate took one look at the situation and said, "I'll be in the garage pretending I can't hear this train wreck," which made me smile despite everything. What she told me next was both shocking and completely predictable at the same time. "I'm pregnant," she said, not even trying to ease into it. I just stared at her. "Congratulations. Why are you telling me?" That's when she broke down crying. The ugly, desperate kind that comes from someone whose entire world has collapsed. "It's Dorian's," she sobbed. "But he doesn't want, he said it's not his problem." Shocking. Nate appeared in the doorway with perfect timing. Did she just say what I think she said? Yeah. The irony was perfect. Dorian, the same guy who'd been posting about their true love and meant-to-be relationship, had immediately bailed the moment real responsibility entered the picture. "Oh, this is rich," Nate said, not even trying to hide his amusement. Then came the part that made my skin crawl. "I know you're angry, but this baby needs a father. You're a good man, Milo. You could be the dad this child needs. We could make this work. I've learned my lesson, I swear." The audacity was breathtaking. She was asking me to raise another man's child, specifically the child of the man she'd chosen over me while I was recovering from surgery. "Let me get this straight," I said, and Nate moved closer because he could sense something good was coming. "You cheated on me with Dorian, got pregnant with his baby, and now that he's bailed on you, you want me to step up and play daddy to his kid?" "It wouldn't be like that," she said quickly. "We'd be a family. The baby would be ours." Nate made a sound like he was choking on his own spit. "Lady, you've got some serious freaking balls. I'll give you that. She'd abandoned me at my lowest point for Dorian, spent months posting about their perfect relationship, and now that he'd proven to be exactly the deadbeat everyone knew he was, she wanted me to clean up the mess. How far along, though? I asked, more out of morbid curiosity than anything else. 4 months, she whispered. That meant she got pregnant right around the time she was posting those soulmate photos with Dorian. While I was dealing with the aftermath of their betrayal, they were busy creating this new problem. Nope, I said simply. Please, Milo. I have nothing. Rebecca kicked me out because I can't pay rent. I'm sleeping in my car. I have nowhere to go and no way to take care of a baby. You made your bed, literally, in that hotel room. Now you get to lie in it, I coldly said. But the baby is not my responsibility, I finished. Call Dorian. Nate stepped forward. I think it's time for you to leave. She looked at both of us, seemed to realize that no amount of begging was going to work, and finally showed some dignity by walking away without another word. After she left, Nate and I sat on my porch with a couple of drinks. Dude, that's not even karma. That's just natural selection working exactly as intended. I called Haley that night to tell her what happened. Her response was immediate and perfect. Wait. The same Dorian who was her soulmate and true love just abandoned her when she got pregnant? Yep. Haley was quiet for a moment, then started laughing. Milo, this is the most beautiful ending I've ever heard. She literally got everything she chose and nothing she wanted. The poetic justice was incredible. Roxy had gambled everything on Dorian being a better choice than me, and reality had called her bluff in the most definitive way possible. She'd traded a stable relationship with a man who loved her for an affair with a deadbeat who couldn't handle responsibility. Last I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved back in with her parents and was working 2 jobs to support herself and the baby. Dorian had moved to another city and wanted nothing to do with either of them. The true love posts had completely disappeared from social media. As for me, I'm doing better than ever. The house is perfect, work is going great, and I'm dating someone new. Haley visits regularly, Nate is still my wingman, and life is exactly what I always wanted it to be, just without the dead weight I'd been carrying for 4 years. Sometimes the trash does take itself out. Edit. Some of you asked about Nate's PlayStation revenge. The charges totaled about $800 over 3 months before she figured out how to stop them. Dorian lost his mind when he realized all his games disappeared when I changed my account passwords. They had a massive fight about it, which probably contributed to him bouncing when she got pregnant. Nate still considers it his masterpiece.